We are now in yet another government shutdown, and you may think that this would make my black and red anarcho-communist heart very happy, but you would be gravely mistaken. It is my intention to talk a little bit about how both the Democrats and Republicans talk about this, and hopefully give a more far left and revolutionary framing. It occurs to me that when I don't do my job, I would be fired, and this is a normal thing that most working class people understand. But of course, our political leaders don't follow logic, and when they don't get their job done, they just shut down the entire government and make it so none of us can do our jobs, at least if we're government employees, that aren't directly responsible for the core mission of keeping the owning classes in power and brutalizing the working class. And that's one thing that we should look at, is what does our government see as essential? And also, why is it that this keeps happening, and who does it benefit? So first off, you might notice that this is not something that happens all that often, if ever, in other nations. And one reason for that is that many nations have a system where if the government fails to do its job, they will have a vote of no confidence, or something similar will trigger an automatic election where all of these politicians that failed to do their job will now be in danger of being replaced with someone who will. This is not a perfect system, but it sure seems to make a lot more sense than what we have. Now, this is obviously a reform-minded solution. I'm not suggesting that this be adopted as part of the Socialist Party platform, or even that America should adopt this, because the root problem is the priorities of our politicians and the fact that we do not live in a true democracy because capitalism is incompatible with democracy. There is no real way to tweak our system to make it work so long as the owning classes run their companies like little dictatorships and wield control over politics. These shutdowns demonstrate to many voters that democracy is simply inefficient, that maybe we should just let the private sector handle all this, because they don't seem to have these problems, right? Of course, that would mean we don't actually get a vote in what they do. Well, actually we do. We get to vote with our dollars. But who has all the dollars again? Well, that's convenient, isn't it? It's the wealthy that get all the votes. So of course they're going to like that system. And that is an ongoing trend that we're seeing in public discourse, that democracy has failed. And this is not in the spirit of we need revolutionary change that is consistent with democratic ideals. It's more that we need a strong man that can get things done. I mean, you saw it even at Trump's suspicious and honestly very cringy assembly of generals, where he proselytized for his specific version of Christian nationalism, where of course he's the big strong man that everyone looks up to and never questions, and how generals and military do not belong in polite society. But this is something we should be prepared to talk about every time this happens. I will repeat, as long as I am able, the problem isn't democracy. The problem is that we don't have enough democracy. And our democracy is not going to be solved by slight tweaks. It is a problem that is at the very core of that system itself. And as long as a small group of people hold all the wealth and power, you cannot have democracy. I don't care how many checks and balances you have. I don't care how well that system is designed. I don't even necessarily care how good intentioned those leaders are. Although it's worth noting that our current system does not reward good intentions. It is a system that prioritizes and rewards profit and self-interest. The people you see at the very top are not the most noble. They're not the most generous or the most moral. They are the most wealthy, but also the most ruthless, the most dishonest, the most egregiously selfish, and those that pledge their fealty to upholding capitalism in the status quo. And under such a system, unfortunately, they do everything to make sure that anyone who threatens such a system is shut out. And I do mean both parties. The leadership of the DNC has made clear over and over again that they are willing to sabotage any even remotely progressive candidate. And when they do win, when they do control the House and the Senate and the White House, they don't pass progressive legislation, they stall and they blame it on blue dog Democrats or the fact that they don't control 100% of the seats. Whereas the Republicans are able to ram through their policies, sometimes even when they don't have a majority or even when they just have a slight majority. So I don't think the problem is that the Democrats win only some of the elections. And I'm not saying that all Democrats are insincere and don't actually hold to these values. I am skeptical, though, because it seems like when pressed, that democracy is secondary to capitalism. And we are seeing what I believe is a genuine conflict between the owning classes, with one side wanting to move much more closely to fascism, believing that's our future, and the other side wants to maintain neoliberalism. And the fact of the matter is, I'm not saying that shutdowns like this are pre-planned or that people get together in a back room and this is all decided, that they already know when the shutdown is going to end. I'm not saying that's impossible, but it isn't really how capitalism works. It isn't some grand scheme. It's just the nature of the system itself lends it to these results that benefit the wealthy and powerful at the expense of the working class. And we'll continue to see that. I mean, with AI, I think the promises of AI are hugely overblown, somewhat to encourage investors to sink their money into what's probably going to be a bubble. But they will build these data centers and they'll probably get a lot of no-bid contracts from their buddies and make a lot of money, and some of them might stick around. A lot of this is going to be used to automate things, not only in the private sector, but in government, because of course labor costs are something they're always seeking to drive down. And for the techno-fascists, their dream of AI is the dream of every capitalist, which is to finally not need the working class. But the promises, again, of AI are overblown. These systems are not on par with human intelligence. Their black box design means that it's very hard to understand why things go wrong, which when these things are making decisions about healthcare and who gets coverage, and right now in Ukraine they're making life or death decisions on the battlefield, it's very scary, and it brings up legally unprecedented issues. They were trying to press through something where no lawsuits regarding AI could be pursued for 10 years, which is just absurd. But it shows you how much confidence they lack in these technologies. What will happen is they will automate vast sectors of the government, especially when it comes to our social safety nets and any service that is regulatory or that helps working people, and they'll lay off the employees, and these systems won't work. And they know this. The point isn't to automate these programs and services and entitlements. The point is to eliminate them. And that is what happens under neoliberalism. That is something that both neoliberal capitalists and fascists have in common. They want to destroy the social safety net. They want to privatize everything. And the way they want to do it, and their end goals are slightly different. It generally has the same people in power, and it really sucks for the working class. One wants to merge corporate and government power, and the other wants to make everything privatized. And in case you're not paying attention, the reason we do need government services, especially under a capitalist system, and this is, again, I'm speaking as an anarchist, I'm not a big fan of government. I do eventually want to achieve full communism. I believe that's the only way humans will ever actually be liberated. Capitalism only provides services and goods when it is profitable, and it is generally not profitable to serve the people who are most in need, and that's where the government steps up. When we talk about low wages and massive, not just unemployment, but underemployment, there are many people who want to work jobs. There's certainly many jobs to do. It's a huge failing of capitalism. It is very inefficient. Despite what people say, capitalism is only efficient at maximizing profits in the short term. That's about it. The reason we've been able to survive with stagnant wages is so many people rely on things like food stamps and TAMF and housing assistance and Medicaid. The majority of people who benefit from means-tested welfare programs, who aren't either elderly, disabled, or children, are working people, and they are in need of those benefits because their jobs don't pay a living wage. So when you think of welfare in the US, you shouldn't think of it as aid for the poor as much as subsidization of low wages. And that doesn't mean we should get rid of it, obviously. This help is still needed, and this help should exist regardless of whether people are working. everyone deserves to have the basics of survival and then some. And we are well within our ability to provide that, especially in the wealthiest nation on earth. There is no reason that anyone should be hungry or homeless or not have a job if they want one, or not have an education. All these things we could provide, but we don't, because it profits the wealthy and powerful not to. And they want to privatize everything because then they could profit off of providing services for those who can afford it and leave everybody else to fight over the scraps, which also means a ready supply of easily exploited labor. And we are facing a crisis with some forms of technology, especially if we do get self-driving cars that automate the trucking industry. Trucking is, in most states, that is the most common job. And if we automate this, it is going to eliminate a lot of jobs. Now, we are nowhere near doing this safely, obviously. But that doesn't mean they're not going to do that. And I don't want to make this too long, but I just want to talk a little bit about the abundance movement. I hope thinking people on the left realized it is neoliberalism. They want to deregulate. If you look at the people who went to the convention for this, it's the usual suspects. So don't be fooled by that. Understand that the shutdown is evidence of a very dysfunctional system, but the solution is not less democracy. The solution is not autocracy. The solution is not putting faith in a strongman leader. They're obviously trying to demonize the far left and goad us into violence, but so far they've only been able to do that by basically lying about the violence that is happening. Fingers crossed. We do need to change the system through peaceful grassroots organizing, and they are cracking down on leftists, so please be careful. We are not for the violent overthrow of the government. We are the ones who are for democracy, for free speech. And I think that's one of the more useful ways to present our message. I'm not out there seeking to convert MAGA because, well, for a variety of reasons, I don't think they're our primary target. I would rather go after people who are more politically disengaged and nihilistic because they don't have any experience with our current political system working. And also bringing bigots into the fold means that you're pushing out the people they're bigoted against. And I'm going to side with the most marginalized and the most oppressed. If you are leftist, that is generally the best choice. It is also the moral thing to do. That is who we should be fighting for. And I hope most of us are fighting for the people we care about, not just for revenge on the powerful. Please be kind. Please be considerate. It really annoys the fascists. Things are probably going to get a lot worse before they get better, so please support each other. Please try to get along. I know we have a lot of differences, but we have a common enemy that we could unite and take power from to make all of our lives better. So maybe we should try to work together until we get that part done. Just a suggestion. But like one of my favorite books says, whatever you do, don't let the bastards get you down. Because there is so much love and beauty in this world and in your fellow human beings that they can never extinguish. It will always be there, and there is hope in this world. Their system is not one that's sustainable. It will eventually fail, and if you give up now, you might not be around to see that. And when that does happen, if I'm still around, maybe we can celebrate. But you first have to put in the work to get that done. So let's get on that. Please make sure you're working with other people, both locally and have a national group you're connected with. This is not something we can do alone. Please be careful. They are going after us. Be careful who you trust. Be careful who you give information to. Be careful what you put online. But don't be scared to speak out, because sometimes little acts of resistance can mean the world. And if this is important to you, I just want you to know that you inspire me and you mean the world to me. We have a world to win and nothing to lose but our chains. And I'm not saying that most Democrats are insincere. And I'm not saying that most Democrats are insincere. And I'm not saying